So I have this mother-in-law and sister-in-law nightmare. My mother-in-law is trying to force me to look after my sister-in-law because she's pregnant. Well, I'll just go ahead and tell you one crucial part of this story. Guess what? She was faking the pregnancy. I don't know where to start, but I'm writing this with the hope of being able to pour out my troubles. I met a man in the early stages of my career who was a very kind, warm-hearted person. We started dating and I gradually fell in love with him. After a couple years, we got married, and looking back, I should have realized that everything was going so smoothly. All of a sudden wasn't quite normal. After we got married, I moved into Lewis's house, which was also his family's home, and the first 2 years of our marriage were wonderful. Everything seemed to be going well. However, my sister-in-law, Megan, was a bit psychologically unstable. Things took a turn for the worse when she became pregnant. Dealing with both pregnancy and depression simultaneously, that's when Lewis asked me to take care of Megan, to support her in a way. I thought that we would get along and become good family buddies because of the circumstances, but in the first month of living with Megan, everything was fine. Mainly because I was still learning the ropes, but from the second month onwards, she started to become a bit rude. At first, I attributed her behavior to her depression and pregnancy. As a woman, I understood her situation. Her hormones were all over the place, and her mental state was poor. I told myself I should treat her better. I did every task she assigned, and I would swallow my pride when she scolded me. I prepared her meals and even took care of her bath to make her comfortable. I believed that family should always be supportive. However, when Lewis came home, our quality time together was often disrupted by Megan's issues. My mother-in-law, on the other hand, was cold and indifferent to me because I had not become pregnant. I was feeling increasingly isolated. I tried to convince myself that this was just a temporary phase and I needed to hang in there. But when I went to bed at night, my mother-in-law would be waiting in the room, giving me instructions, and she told me to prepare myself for Lewis, not to appear unkempt in front of him, and to be an obedient wife in the bedroom. I felt inadequate and insufficient as a woman. Lewis was often away from home due to work, so I decided to reach out to him to share my concerns. However, he did not respond to my calls for a long time, and I tried to convince myself that I might be overreacting, that my mother-in-law was just concerned about our marriage and that it was normal for an older woman to choose the wrong approach. I was constantly tired and neglected because of Megan. I could not even eat properly, and I told Megan that I would not be able to take care of her for a while as I needed my husband's presence. Megan called my mother-in-law, and they both started yelling at me at home. Just then Lewis walked in. He saw Megan shouting, learned what was happening, and without much concern headed to his own bedroom. Megan followed him, and my mother-in-law went to her room, calling me selfish for asking for some time for myself. I was deeply hurt. I'd only requested a little time to rest, but I could not shake off the strange feeling that something was amiss. It seemed strange that while Megan was pregnant and unwell, her husband would leave without showing any concern. Unable to bear the situation any longer, I called Lewis. When I explained everything to Lewis, he did not take me seriously. In fact, he defended my sister-in-law and simply hung up on me. It was the day of frustration. Unable to sleep that night, I went to the kitchen and decided to make some coffee, and inadvertently eavesdropped on a conversation in the living room between Megan and my mother-in-law. They were plotting behind my back, and Lewis was well aware of it. Megan wasn't actually pregnant. What I heard shocked me because I never expected this. Not only had they turned me into a housemaid, but Lewis has also run away to avoid getting caught for his involvement in smuggling, planning to shift the blame onto me. I was terrified and my mind was racing. I wanted to go back to my room immediately, fearing I might be caught. Quietly, without them noticing, I went back to my room and immediately called my mother. It was midnight, so she was worried when I called, but I explained everything to her. From Lewis and his family preparing to frame me, to trying to pin all of Lewis's crimes on me. My mom was shocked and angry after hearing this, but she woke up my dad and we concluded the call after discussing our plan. I spent the entire night pondering the situation. I requested permission to leave Megan and my mother-in-law for a while, saying I needed to visit my family, and I assured them I would return the next day. I went to my family. When we sat down to discuss the situation, we devised a plan. I returned home the next day. About a week later, I told Megan that her belly was big enough now to have a beautiful baby shower. Megan was thrilled at the idea, and once we convinced my mother-in-law, we started making preparations. My mom and I gathered evidence of what my husband had done and what his family had planned, and I would not be the one going to jail. While handling Megan's task, I secretly took her phone and copied the messages between her and Lewis. At night, I also recorded the conversations between Megan and my mother-in-law. This went on for some time, and when the day of the party arrived, my family took all the evidence to the police. After all the guests have gathered, during the celebration speeches and conversations, when it was time for the balloons to pop, black smoke started emanating from the balloons, and before Megan could realize what was happening, I played the recorded conversations. Though I was very anxious, I felt relieved because I've taken revenge for what they have done and what they were planning to do to me. Everybody listened on in shock to Megan and my mother-in-law's conversation, and after a while they started getting angry and preparing to leave the party. And that moment the police arrived and arrested the two of them. They could not catch Lewis, but as a result I divorced him and was finally free. A huge burden had been lifted off my shoulders, but my only fear was the possibility of Lewis causing trouble again. I still get nervous when I go out on the streets and when I go to work, as if he might suddenly appear and threaten me. As I remember, my memories come vividly to my mind, and I'm filled with even more dread. I'm angry with myself for being so blind, and I don't know, I hope I've taken the right steps, and I won't have to be afraid anymore. Top comment from the original post. Comment number 1. I commend your courage. I'm glad you stood up against such a conspiracy and fought back. Some women remain silent and endure suffering throughout their lives. You're very fortunate to have the support of your family, and if the Lewis issue still bothers you, you might consider seeking psychological therapy. Comment number 2. Honestly, if you can plan something like this for revenge, you're quite cunning and dangerous. I don't believe somebody as conniving as you claim to be was used as a slave. I'm sure your sister-in-law was a decent person, but you tried to vilify her out of jealousy. You even seemed surprised and angry that your husband was on his brother's side, which is quite absurd, of course. He would side with his brother. I hope the police missed Lewis, and I hope he comes after you because you've torn his family apart. Update number 1. Hey guys, after reading your comments, I've realized that some people can truly have outrageous thoughts. You can't know what it's like until it happens to you. If I've done this out of jealousy, I would not have wanted to be part of the family or live with them in the first place. I had wanted a happy family and life, but the results did not turn out as I hoped. What could I have done differently? I've started undergoing psychological therapy because the Lewis issue still deeply troubles me. It's as if I'm becoming paranoid. I see Lewis everywhere I go. I think he's following me, and I don't want to live with this fear inside me. I frequently communicate with the police to check if they've caught Lewis or not, and to the person who suggested that Lewis should take revenge on me, I'll say I hope you go through something like I've experienced so you can understand how difficult it is. I'll leave the topic here and talk to you about other news. For instance, I heard that Megan had been admitted to a psychiatric hospital, so it seems she does have some sort of mental illness, which is why she lied about her pregnancy. I suspect it because, I don't know, the psychological pressure she endured from my former mother-in-law. I haven't even fully recovered from the effects that she's left on me. So how could Megan have been a good person, right? My doctor told me that I was not actually ill, just excessively anxious due to stress, so I was trying to adapt to daily life, but one day I received a message from an unknown number, saying that I was being constantly monitored and I needed to be careful. Initially, the messages were coming in a few times a week, so I tried to consider it might be a prank. Some people want to intrude into your lives for no reason and make them unhappy. I wasn't going to allow it. No one would see my vulnerable side. Update number 2. Do you know those messages I mentioned earlier in my last post? Well, back then I thought they were just pranks, but now I'm getting messages literally every day. And sometimes the messages even include photos of me. The thoughts of looking at them terrifies me. Maybe one of the people who commented on my post is Lewis, I don't know. This has made me even more scared because I thought it was something that I imagined. I thought it would be a passing thought that would eventually go away. I didn't expect it to turn into something that had to be dealt with. In one of his messages, Lewis spoke so threateningly that I became unsure of what to do. On one hand, I did not want to seek help from my parents again because I'm a grown woman, and I didn't want to be constantly dependent on their help. On the other hand, I did not have anyone else to turn to, and I might have to deal with this situation on my own. I don't know what you think, which option seems more logical. Nonetheless, I believe there's something I can do. I can try to catch him myself based on the photos he sent me and then turn them into the police. You might think I'm crazy, but I feel like I have no other choice, as if I'm stuck in the dead end and can't do anything. At least I can catch him with my own strength. I tried to track him by following the messages that he sent me. I was trying to figure out where he took those photos and where he might be. I was trying every method to catch him, but somehow he kept slipping through my grasp. I showed Lewis's pictures to people in the places where photos were taken, hoping somebody might recognize him. Some of them did give me a few leads. I was going down every street, thinking I might catch him. When I returned home, I had nothing in my hands. I felt completely empty. Tell me, where did I go wrong? Because now I can't see anything anymore. What do I need to do to get rid of this man? Should I seek help from someone? Update number 3. Actually, I had somebody I could call, but I'm not sure. Anyways, I'll call them because I can't get anywhere by chasing him on my own. The person is my psychologist, and I can call them since they're educated and can help me. I called my psychologist and explained the reason for the anxiety I've been feeling and how I've been feeling nervous and under threat for a while. I told them that my ex-husband was after me, how hard I tried to catch him, but I didn't get any results, and now Lewis wants to talk to me, but I don't want to do it. By the way, something I did not tell you is that after I returned home empty-handed from tracking him, I stopped following him since I couldn't catch him anyways. However, this time Lewis sent me a message saying he wanted to meet and that it could be difficult if he wanted, but if he preferred it to be calm and on my own terms. Well, I was so stressed that I could not control myself, and I was crying while talking. I didn't want to experience those horrible feelings ever again. My psychologist said that it would be a good idea to have this meeting so that I could hand Lewis over to the police. I was so relieved to hear that. The meeting was scheduled for a week later, and I sent my psychologist all the information from my phone since I was being watched. I couldn't go to the police station myself, so my psychologist would, work with the police on my behalf. I'm acting like nothing's changed. I go to work, hang out, and sometimes do some shopping. The messages stopped after the meeting arrangement, but I know I'm being watched. It's hard to explain, but the feeling doesn't leave me. When I got home, my psychologist sent me a message saying everything was ready for the meeting day. Do you think it was the right decision to go to the meeting? There's still days until the meeting, and it really makes me nervous. I lock all the doors a few times when I'm at home, and when I talk to my psychologist, they calm me down and said everything would be fine and that I needed to stay calm. When I took a shower, my doorbell rang like crazy. I was scared and I checked through the peephole, but nobody was there. I was hesitant to open the door or not, but in the end I did it. There was a small box outside. When I opened it, I found our wedding ring and a note that said, "You still owe me." Update number 4. When I brought the ring inside, Lewis messaged me again just a few days before our meeting. He expressed his hope that I would wear the ring and show up because he wrote, quote, "Our marriage doesn't end until I say it's over." Why wouldn't this guy just leave me alone? I couldn't fathom why this maniac was relentlessly pursuing me. I took photos of the ring and the note and the messages, sending them to the psychologist, again asking her to pass them to the police. I felt trapped at home with my hands tied, just waiting for what might come. Just a couple hours before the meeting, Lewis messaged me again, urging me to get ready and go to the meeting, although I could not comprehend what kind of psychopath he was. That evening marked the end of it. I have a dress that Lewis had given me as a gift, and I wore it for that occasion. I was prepared. The dress was a symbol of my revenge, and I left home and went to the place that we planned to meet. It was a quiet cafe, not frequented by many, but the police were already there, though they blended in, appearing as civilians. I entered the cafe, sat down, and began to wait. Lewis was approaching the cafe. Just seeing him made me very anxious, and I was overwhelmed with stress. He sat across from me and said he wasn't expecting me to come. He thought I had come because I missed him. When I asked him why he had been following me, he said it was to scare me since I caused him harm to his family. He claimed he loved me so much that he didn't want anyone else in my life, which was why he had frightened me so much, and my God, I was so lucky to get rid of this guy tonight. When I told him he could not follow me anymore, he got tense, but he said that I could not do anything and reminded me that I loved him too. I couldn't believe it. This guy was as crazy as his brother. Suddenly, the police arrest him, and Lewis glared at me angrily. "Wait until I get out of prison. I'll be after you again." And then the police took him away. My psychologist come to me afterward and is telling me that this is finally over. I felt really relieved and I wanted to cry. I was so exhausted that I eventually found myself in the hospital. I fainted from excessive stress. My mother was with me and my father was angry with me for starting something like this without telling him and was also concerned about my condition. I was so relieved that it was over. I hope you think the same way I do. Update number 5. This is the final update of the story. Hey guys, it's been about a month since the events and I continue to receive treatment. Lewis's actions have been profound impact on me and I've moved back in with my family and resigned from my job. Currently all I do is write here and spend time with my family. Whenever I go outside, I still can't shake the feeling. Somebody's watching me, following me, and I tend to assume the worst about any man I encounter. I've been having trouble sleeping at night, so I'm using sleeping medicine very heavily. The most beautiful thing is that the creep has been caught and is behind bars. Knowing this gives me so much relief. It's as if I've erased another evil from the world. Whenever I think about that night, it reminds me to believe in strength. I'm happy that I was able to fight back. I'm attending group therapy now, and my female friends, they're all telling me how strong I am. I know that I might continue to deal with some trauma for a while, but I'm confident that I'll overcome it. I encourage you to stay strong, not be afraid of individuals like this. Guys, keep fighting, because I believe you will succeed. If you have any advice for my recovery, please don't hesitate to share it. I'm open to all ideas during this period of healing. I just wanted to thank you guys one more time for all the help that you've given me along the way. So OP finds peace living with her family again towards the end of the story, and we also know that her significant other, well, her husband is behind bars, captured by the police. I want to know your thoughts about this story, guys. What do you think of OP's actions and taking a bit of revenge, going after her husband and setting him up to be arrested? I do want to know your exact thoughts, so if you want to talk about it, share your opinions. Maybe somebody out there watching this video has been through something similar like in today's story. Okay, my name's Mr. Reddito, and if you guys are new to the channel, I want to welcome you here and thank you for listening today. I hope you enjoyed the story, and if you want more daily drama videos, including inheritance dramas, mother-in-law disputes, wedding fiascos, I mean, you name it, we have it. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.